And now to lead our meeting today, President-elect Catherine Sines.
Good morning, Rotarians. Welcome, everyone. We have a great program this morning, so I hope you're all as excited as I am. First, I'd like to ask Chris Barker to introduce our guest.
Good morning, Rotarians.
Good morning, Chris.
If you would please join me in welcoming our guests. First, we have Logan Ritter. He's helping us with the AV, and he's from the Hudson Service Learning class. Thank you. And then, if you'd please stand up, we have Clinton Samuel joining us today, and he is a guest of Rich Warfield. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. And next we have the coach to come up. He has a few words he'd like to say.
Clinton, I thought you were Josh Gribbs there for a second there. Yep. Just a couple of things. Number one, Ron Strobel wanted me to mention that his picture is again in the hub as an outstanding golfer, and please make sure that you bring it in next week, and he said for $10 he'd autograph it for you. We have a big football game coming up on Friday night versus Stowe. Stowe's undefeated. They're in our division, and it should be a packed house, so if you're coming, make sure you get there early. And next week is Fine Day. Make sure you bring those dollars, especially Tom Tobin, who arrives late every time. Thank you.
We have a couple more announcements. Joe Zapatowski wants to speak to you. You know, a retired superintendent, they always want to come up and talk.
I heard that.
You were meant to.
The Centennial Orchestra tickets are in. I've got a ticket here for George Schmutz, for myself, Dave Basel, who's not here, Evan McCauley, are you here? Tom Tobin?
Yes, sir.
And Tom Fleming. So if you'll see me afterwards, I've got the tickets. Now, if you still want to go, there are tickets available. You can go on the internet, the district site for the Centennial. Just go to Google and you'll probably get to the right site. If you have trouble, get to me and I'll try to get tickets for those of you who might wish to go. That's for Sunday, October 23rd at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. And next, our 3-minute Rotarian, Phil Warburton. Would you please come up and do your 3 minutes? And I'm timing you.
Thank you very much,
You're
Catherine.
welcome. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning, Phil. Got to hear it a little louder. Good morning, Rotarians. Very good. Well, this is going to be exciting. So, perk your ears. Perk your ears. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Phil Warburton. I was born in Canton, Ohio during the Second Big War. That's World War II. My father was a physician and my mother was a nurse. I was born and raised in North Canton, Ohio, former home of the Hoover Company, which is no longer there and I think is in Mexico. I was a Cub Scout and went to school in the North Canton school system. When I was a sophomore in high school, it became the Hoover High School. When I was a freshman in high school, 4 friends and I started the first North Canton High School golf team. We qualified for the state championship, but did not fare too well in Columbus. Never forget that day. Sudden death playoff, and we won. We played over in Ravenna, then we went to Columbus. After graduating from high school, I attended Hiram College. I graduated from Hiram with a BA in history and political science. I then considered what my next move would be. You may have guessed it already. I went to law school at the Akron University. After graduation, I practiced in a small firm in Akron, Ohio, practicing in many fields. I did, however, seem to have my fair share of domestic relations cases. Sunday night was one of my favorite times. This is when my female clients would call me and say that their children had not been returned by their ex-husband, and what was I going to do about it? Many times during the next few days, we would appear in court. This was one of the major reasons I looked for another way of making a living. I then decided to change directions and enter the financial planning business, which I really enjoyed. With a small firm in Cleveland, we specialized in working with small businesses and professional people. Selling insurance was part of the business. I qualified for a number of trips, including 2 trips to Hawaii, a trip to San Antonio, and a trip to Quebec City. This to me was very interesting and fascinating, but there were other areas that drew my attention and interest as well. One of these was Boston Hills Country Club. While I was a law partner with the firm, the major partner asked me if I would like to own a golf course. I said, yes. How are we going to do this? And he, along with my father and some other individuals and myself, bought Boston Hills. I was his manager and co-owner for some time. I learned to water greens at night.
How about cutting grass, though?
As well as the art of fertilization and disease treatment of greens. I also learned how difficult it was to run a seasonal business, turn it on and turn it off. One other business my father and I had another family were involved with the Holiday Inn in Boston Heights. We built the Holiday Inn in Boston Heights. We started with 150 rooms, and when it was sold, we had 300 rooms, and the Ohio Bell Regional Training Center. Investment in real estate has been an interest of mine as well. Another venture my father and I started involved the doctor-patient relationship, which you all are aware of. If you aren't aware of it, you will be. My father practiced medicine for 65 years and was well known in the northeastern Ohio area. He had many patients, and they were all his friends. About 8 years ago, we started the Esther Lewis Warburton Patient Education Initiative, named after my mother. We worked with some other individuals to develop materials and put on programs in hospitals, nursing homes, and other organizations, including the Rotary Club. The purpose of the organization is to teach patients to get the most out of their relationship with their physician and be a strong advocate for themselves and their loved ones. We took this project as far as we could, and we knew we needed a partner. In the past 2 years, we entered into a relationship with the Mayo Clinic. We are excited about this, and we're on the move. I was also one of 7 members who founded the Holy Trinity Anglican Church. I have been a member of the vestry and senior warden. I also served as a member of the Dad's Club at Western Reserve Academy, as well as its president. I am married to Sally Bonnicker Warburton, one of the best decisions I ever made. We met, incidentally, during World War II. We have 2 children, Carrie Warburton Montalto and Betsy Warburton Downs. Carrie lives in Falls Church, Virginia, and has graduated with many, many, many degrees. Law from the Akron University, Master's in History from George Mason University, Master of Internet Teaching from Akron University, and a degree from Northwestern from the School of Journalism. What else is there? Well, there's a lot, and let's not talk about that. Until recently, she worked for the Mortgage Bankers Association. She is retired to become a full-time mother. She's married to Alex Montalto and has 2 children. Incidentally, Alex Montalto is the Chief Financial Officer for the International Rescue Mission organization, which rescues people who are held in bondage and who are slaves in different countries. And then they set up an organization, a legal system to handle things after they leave. They've really stripped Cambodia of all the problems that they had. Betsy Downs, Warburton Downs, is my second child, and she lives in Marietta, Georgia. She has 3 children. She works for Microsoft Corporation, but in fact she works for Microsoft Corporation, Yahoo Corporation, and 2 other corporations that handle cell phones. She's very expert, a very good expert in that in the field, and she graduated from Indiana University and earned her master's degree from Loyola University in Chicago. Betsy is married to Mike Downs, and they have a son by the name of Liam Thomas. They have a daughter by the name of Maddie Madison Downs, and they have a son by the name of AJ, just newly born. I have 5 grandchildren. I've gotten these five grandchildren have come into my life in the last 4 years. It's really been exciting, and I feel so blessed that I have them. I joined the Rotary Club of Hudson to contribute to the welfare of the Hudson community, as well as to meet new people and make new friends. That's Phil Warburton.
Thank you. I'm going to let you pick next week's. There's only 3. There's 3. He's going to pick next week's 3-minute Rotarian.
10-minute Rotarian.
Ben Rexford Road. Rexford. You going to be here next week? Okay. There's down to 2. Gosh, you couldn't make these any smaller. Craig Tallman? Craig Tallman, can you be next week's? Okay. Thank you. And thanks, Phil. And next is my privilege to introduce some special people. First, we have an introduction from Mr. Herman first, but after that, we're going to have, I want to talk if we come up. Okay.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians. I'm sorry that I can't be with you this morning. I am actually in Columbus at the Buckeye Association of School Administrators Fall Conference. And so in Columbus this morning, but fortunately, our Assistant Superintendent Doreen Osmond is here to present to you information about our Master Facilities Plan. We are really excited about the Master Facilities Plan, and we have a lot of work yet to do. We know that we need your best thinking, we need community feedback on the 3 scenarios that have been developed and are included in the Master Facilities Plan. And so she's going to provide you some information on that this morning, and hopefully we can gather some great feedback. Again, really appreciate it. Sorry I can't be with you this morning. I did want to point out for Mr. Sogan, Fine Master, just please note that right there is a Rotarian pin. And Bad Boy Table, you make sure that you are nice to Mrs. Osmond. I'll turn things over to Mrs. Osmond, and thanks again.
It's my honor to introduce to you Doreen Osmond. Doreen is our Assistant Superintendent. And honestly, since I've been at Hudson, she knows everything about curriculum. If you have any, or if you need a task that needs done, you know you go to Doreen and it's going to get done. Doreen's been with Hudson 13 years, and we won't say how long she's been an educator, but she knows Hudson and she knows the system. Doreen Osmond.
Today I'm very privileged and honored to speak to the Rotarians again. Usually I speak about once a year, and today I'm going to talk to you about our facility planning and one of our major initiatives that has been going on for about the last 18 months or so. So we have been working on a master facility plan. We take care of our short-term needs. We have a plan for our summer projects that include, some roofing sections, parking lots, our general maintenance that goes on during the summer. But really, what a facility plan is really holistic. It's looking at long-range needs and looking at towards the future and what do we need to do. It's part of our Board of Education policy, and it's really where are we for the vision of our district as it relates to facilities, and facilities have a huge impact on learning. So here's the process I just want to outline briefly. We had a comprehensive building analysis. We looked at capital forecasting, so our bricks and mortars, systems like our plumbing systems, our roofs as a whole, HVAC, electrical systems, fire suspension, sewer, water. In this capital forecasting, we are forecasting when these systems are coming end to life or at a critical stage. We also looked at our enrollment. This is something that we do. It's part of our normal standard operating procedures because we need to plan for staffing. We need to work with Catherine and forecasting our operational costs. So we do this normally, and we had 2 studies done actually in the last 9 months or so because we wanted to make sure we were capturing the new housing that was going on, working with live births, working with some of the statistics in Summit County and Ohio and Northeast Ohio. We also engaged in a visioning workshop. And what the heck is a visioning workshop? Really looking at how do you use the space? So even looking at Laurel Lake and the transformation that Laurel Lake, this space right here, has had in the last really 2 or 3 years, there's upgrades that are being done. So how do we use our space for learning and to enhance learning? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And think about Lonnie Banner's class, Service Learning, has been coming for years. It is not a traditional classroom. If you go in, and I know that you all have opportunity to volunteer to hear about their debates or their issues. It is a small room. It's kind of big, but they're cramped in there because it's 50 kids. So how can we make that transform those learning spaces? And that's only one little example. Plus, look at the learning that goes outside of the classroom for service learning. And again, one small example about what 21st century learning is really about. And then we wanted to develop different options for the master facility plan. What do we want our campus, our school campus, to look like, and how can we enhance our learning and our buildings? We also had a cost modeling analysis and of the various options. What is the price tag for each of these plans? And then we wanted to develop a strategy to help implement the facility planning. So we want to always start with why. So Hudson Middle School, we have aging facilities, but that's part of the why. Hudson Middle School was built in the original part, 1927. Phil, I think, mentioned coming back, World War II, met his bride during World War II. We have men and women who came back and wanted to settle in Hudson and realized that we needed to have a bigger space for our high school. So, and then we have our other school buildings as Hudson continued to grow the township and then the city. Other schools were built in the 50s and the 60s. So we have aging facilities. Parts of our high school are turning 90 next year. Rapid development and changes in education and technology. Just think about the changes that have happened. Most of the time, our schools were built with something that we call sage on the stage. Kids in rows. And think of Lonnie's classroom. There's not a row in sight. They're all over the place. And they have round tables. But it's not rows. It's not the teacher delivering instruction. It is the teacher facilitating instruction. So students are diving into their learning. There's increased social engagement. And we want flexible learning spaces that allow for instruction to adjust to the technology and to the learning modes. So students still need that individual work time, but they need time and places to collaborate with one another and in different settings. I'm going to have Lauren and Krista bring around, there's boards here. What do those learning spaces look like? This is actually from a building in Marysville, Ohio. It was built in the mid-50s, early 60s, and there were redesign of learning spaces. So you can see a before and after. So as I talk, I wanted, just so you can get a picture, exactly what is she talking about? So fiscally responsible. So when school districts wait, or even when you wait as a homeowner, to fix something when it breaks, it becomes more expensive. It's not planning for the future, it is reactive instead of proactive. So we still take care of those emergency situations. We have contingency funds, but we are at a point that some of our systems are at a critical age. Again, we have some major systems, especially at the middle school, that are coming to age. So planning ahead is actually less expensive. It's fiscally responsible. Also, I've come to Rotary for years now, and I sat and I pondered the 4-way test. really it's about paying it forward and continuing to pay it forward. And I can't think of a group of people in Hudson that have ties to Hudson that pay it forward every day, because you want to make it a little bit better for those who come after you, or for our students and for the community. So that pay it forward, and we are beneficiaries of the pay it forwardness of the people, of our citizens, of our boards of education in our city, who has paid it forward and planned for good facilities that we have today in Hudson. Our students benefit from it. So why now? Why are we talking about this right now? We are at a point for some of our facilities that there is a point of diminishing returns, and we know that through our capital forecasting. We have the life cycle of existing buildings, facilities. There's certain life cycles of 75, 90 to 100 years is about a life cycle of a school building. Think of the hundreds and thousands of children that go through our schools. Facility plans will take years to implement. I'm not saying it's going to be between about 5 years. So but from start to finish, as we start these facility plans, 18 months to 5 years. So it'll be done in phases. We have a period of operational financial stability. Our last operating levy, so operating levy are things that keep our buses running, our lights on, our staff, our teachers and staff working with students. That's operational costs. Our last operational levy was in 2011. Catherine is presenting the 5-year forecast, and through this 5 years, we are still in good financial stability because of the leadership, really, of our board, but especially Catherine and Phil, making sure that we stick to our budgets. And then also, we have historically low interest rates. When we're talking millions of dollars, percentage points matter. So that is part of the why now. There are 3 different plans that were developed, and I think we had originally gone through about 21, 22 iterations of how does this work, how does this fit, and then also looking at our debt ceilings. Districts have debt ceilings, and our debt ceiling, we don't want to reach our debt ceiling, but we're going to be near in some of these plans. So I'm going to talk a little bit about refresh and renovations. A refresh is something that you do to your kitchen, that you have new window treatments, new maybe new hardwood floors, you have paint, and maybe you change those really cool knobs on your cabinet, going from a different, but it's different, it looks fresh. A renovation is when you gut everything and you maybe put an island in, and you're going to use the space for something a little bit different. You're going to have different meeting areas, different gathering places in that kitchen where everybody seems to gather. Our middle school renovations, when in this plan, will renovate our middle school but not transform it. And we still will have operational, we'll still have some of the, what I call the guts, which is HVAC, boiler systems, and such, that will expand the life of the middle school for another 10 to 15 years, probably more, but still we're going to have an operational, critical operational issues. Our grade level configurations will remain the same. McDowell and Eva Mere will have air conditioning. And then we have district identified maintenance, which include our site, how the actual site, meaning parking, traffic flow. I know that we've heard some feedback about our traffic flow on North Hayden and the middle school. Some of those site problems will be addressed. We have about $20 million invested in that. Playgrounds, utility improvements, central campus parking, really that whole building envelope. And one of the charges from our Board of Education was to bring us different plans that address central office. If you've ever gone to one of our central offices to visit Catherine or to see Phil, we are in 3 different houses. It was those 3 houses. That property was bought about 25 years ago when the high school was built. And it was supposed to be temporary. We're still there. And we are in 3 different houses. So we have a lot of redundancies. Just think about the copiers and the printers and some of the staffing also. If we were under one roof, we could I know we can operate more efficiently and we can better serve our community because we have rooms that probably the most we can hold in a room is about 7 or 8 people for meeting spaces. So hopefully to serve our community better. So again, the renovation of a middle school would be about $34.5 million. And I'm not saying only, that's a lot of money. And please know that we know that. That's a huge investment. We want to renovate Eastwoods, McDowell, Ellsworth Hill, and Evamere, and keep the existing grade level configurations. There are very limited renovations scheduled for the middle school and for Ellsworth Hill. There are newer buildings. They don't need as many. We are going to add central office to McDowell. We have $21 million in district identified needs. And then we have high school improvements. So here's just a concept. We worked with architects, OHM, and saying, does this fit? So the refresh areas, that's like the paint and new lighting and things like that, that's the blue area. And then the reprogramming is when we would look at those learning spaces in a different way. So there are different areas addressed. And again, this is just a concept. And again, this is the second floor of grades 6, 7, and 8. This option also, this is Eastwoods. Again, we have refresh and refinish. That commons is huge at Eastwoods. So reprogramming some of that, we don't need that big of a space. So how can we use our space in a more efficient way too? And here is McDowell. Whoops. McDowell, you can see central office. This would still be a third grade building. We have we've put office records and office spaces. So with a full third grade class, we can fit about 10,000 feet of central office space. We have talked about what would it take to build new on some property, potentially. A new central office, about 10 to 11,000 square feet, would be about $2 million. So we can repurpose our space here for a lot less money. And again, here's Ellsworth Hill Elementary, and then that library, it was built with 2 grade levels in mind. If there was an addition, we would look at a flex lab for some of that flexible learning spaces that I talked about earlier. And then here is Evamere. Evamere, down here where it says student dining, that is a challenge for us because it is our theater, it is our cafeteria, it is our gym. So it's a cafeteria-nasium or something like that. So we want to build a new gym, and hopefully within that courtyard area. Again, repurposing, and again, these are concepts. Our next plan, the white plan, is the exact same thing that I just went through with one huge, and I do mean huge, exception, is the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade new middle school. So again, so the renovations was about 31 or 34 million. A brand new middle school is going to cost $46 million about. And again, we are the district identified needs. We need less in that district identified needs because a lot of that money is going to be spent in a new middle school. So we don't need as many. Again, we're renovating. All the renovations are the exact same. So I just want to show you conceptually where the new middle school would be. Conceptually, it would be built right behind the middle school. We would still use all of these facilities. Really, the industry standards are about 30 acres of land for a middle school for that space, and the only place in Hudson that really has 30 acres is the YDC, and that's off campus. And I know that and I love this campus concept. That is something that we were able to have paid forward years and years and years ago. So this would be a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade building. It's about 178,000 square feet. Our current middle school is about 190,000 square feet, and you're thinking, well, we still have 3 grade levels. Well, the middle school was added on 3 or 4 times over the last 90 years. And so that was really something that we had to think about, but it's not efficient use of space. Another thing that we considered is a selective demolition and putting central office at the middle school and saving the facade. That would be about a $7 million price tag to do that, and then to build new. So we looked at different reiterations. How can we save with some of the things that we have nostalgia to? Again, the parking issue would be addressed. Parking would be improved because existing parking, and then where the current middle school sits, and then we would have some field issues and site management that we would have to take care of. And again, all the elementaries and the rest of the buildings would be the same. The blue plan is something a little bit different. So it is a little bit more transformational. It is considers a 5, 6, 7, 8. I feel like I'm in a dance routine. 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a 5, 6, 7, 8 building, which again would expand brand new buildings, 75 years plus. We're hoping, obviously we can get more out of our buildings. Our vast majority, 10 grade levels, would be in new or pretty new facilities. And considering that our high school is still held up to a model today of new high schools that are being built across Ohio, our Hudson High School, the way it was built and the use of space is something that is still a model in the state of Ohio. We would have refresh and renovations, again, for our elementaries, and our grade level configurations would be the same. So a student traveling through our schools would have one less transition, because right now we have they start at Evamere unless they are in preschool, which is at Ellsworth Hill. So pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, Evamere. Second grade is Ellsworth Hill. Third grade is McDowell. Fourth and fifth is Eastwood. 6th, 7th, 8th, middle school, and then high school is 9, 12. So we would also, in this plan, be moving central office to Evamere and taking part of Evamere offline. So 5, 6, 7, 8th grade building. Again, we would be making use of core facilities, gyms, auditoriums that 4 grade levels can use. So it's actually a better use, potentially a better use of our space. It is a little bit tighter fit, we know that. And again, 10 grade levels would be in new or newer buildings. Here is a 3rd and 4th. So Eastwoods in this plan becomes a 3rd and 4th grade building. And again, there's a little less refresh and reprogramming because we needed to scale back on some of the other projects. Our concept for McDowell would be pre-K and K. And then we would have to add on a 7 classroom addition to Ellsworth Hill. Ellsworth Hill was built just like our high school. It was built with the electrical and plumbing caps at the end of the building, so we can add on. The innards, the chillers, the boilers are in place, so we can add on efficiently. So we built that with 2008 costs, but with a vision in mind, just like our high school was when we added the wing on about 9 years ago. So central office would now be at Evamere, and that is the blue part of it. We would save the parts that are not grayed out, but that are still open and white for community use. So we can run community classrooms. It could be a community learning center, looking at running programming for community members, seniors, and so on. And then the gray part is a selective deconstruction. We would not want to maintain that building. The deconstruction would be about $150,000 to $200,000, and that is not included in the budget. That would have to be budgeted for in operating costs and other money. So I want to I want to review, and I want to provide you with a handout on those district identified needs, because that $20 million price tag is significantly reduced in this last plan, in the blue plan. And you can kind of see where we are in all 3 plans about those district identified needs. And we are on the road, Phil and I mostly, and the impact group. We are on the road doing 21 different focus groups. So we are using our partnership with the Impact Group, who knows us well. They know Hudson well. And Krista and Lauren are here to help facilitate some questions, and then also the feedback process, because we want your thoughts. We want what your impressions are. And so the next steps really are gathering this information. Impact Group will be presenting it to the Board of Education, and really the next step is that they would identify one plan to move forward, and then part of that moving forward would be, how do we make this happen? How does this investment in our schools happen? So I would like to turn it over. I can take a few questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Krista and to Lauren. Does anyone have any questions for me? Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Can you hear?
I can hear.
Okay.
I can repeat the question too.
It went to the Board of Education?
The master facility plan, with the 3 options, yes, went to the Board of Education. The whole plan is about 70 pages long. It is way more detailed than I just shared with you this morning. So yes, you can go to our website. It's under About Us. You would click to Board of Education, and it's the last item on the Board of Education webpage. And so again, it's 970 pages
And it'll go
of
back to the
information.
After all the visioning goes back to the Board of Education for them to vote on one plan.
Yes, it'll go back to the Board of Education, and they will narrow it down to one plan, and part of that plan then would be, how do we fund that plan? And that funding piece of it would come, it's 2 Board of Education meetings, so targeting December and January. So.
This is kind of a,
Yeah.
it's not working, crazy question, but realizing that so many business folks are working from home, will that trend ever reach education so that we'll need less facilities because kids can work on their computers and be connected into the class from home?
We already have opportunities for what we call, that's called blended learning. So they're taking their classes online at home, but they come in and do their assessments. Our students tend right now, and not saying that won't, but tend to want to be here because they are social, they love their school, they want to be with their friends. So we wanted to make sure we keep that balance of being able to have students to be interactive with one another, but also to have that independent work time. So I think, yes, it can. So some of those spaces would be more flexible spaces where students would still come in. We would still want them to take assessments here with us for their grades.
If you've ever taken a class online, which I have, it's harder to do it on your own. You have to really be disciplined. It's hard enough as a college student or adult to take a class away. Now you're going to have younger students take away. And even at university level, to take a test, you have to have a computer with a camera and someone on the other end watching you take that test. Only I know that because my daughter's teaching right now, professor, and they just had a problem where someone else was in the room helping the person take the test. And she didn't realize they actually were watching them take the test. So it's not like you can do that without some sort of supervision.
But we want to make our learning spaces flexible so we can do that.
So, do you have a recommended plan that would best fit the needs of the students going forward?
I do, but this is really the whole purpose of our getting feedback. So I'm looking at it truly from just what I would like, but it's yeah. I think that there's plans that make sense. I worry about investing that much money into a middle school that is 90 years old. I do worry about that. I mean, I can say but again, we need that feedback from our citizens.
As opposed to the at-home learning, for those people that work and it looked like the blue plan would probably be the place, but has any consideration been given to recreational facilities for kids after school versus going downtown and hanging out?
Yeah, so we have HCER programming, Hudson Community Education and Recreation, which the school, it's out of the schools. So we have a ton of after-school programs too. So hopefully to expand that, again, it's not a city community center. That is something that we can't take on as a school district, but to provide space in our schools for Hudson Community HCER activities. So yes, so that is kind of the idea. Right now it's hard to bring in adult or multi-generational classes into our schools because the kids are they're in their classrooms. So, but this could provide an opportunity for that. Yes.
I have a question about what you think the pros and cons for putting 5th graders with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I have taught in a school like that in way back in the dark ages, and it is a challenge. And the issues related to bullying can get out of hand. So I'd be curious.
So we've started to talk about that. There's an opportunity to operate a school within a school. So our 5th and 6th graders kind of together in a wing, but then they share, some of their program through their PE classes and everything. It could be a different start time for 5th and 6th graders versus 7th and 8th graders. So totally different bell schedules, but still using the main part of the facility. Not that they would have gym classes together or eat together, but there's opportunities that we use our space, and because there's times that our gyms and our art rooms don't have any kids in it. So let's fully utilize our facilities. So really separating them, we would have to really delve into that piece of it, but that's our initial thought. And still maybe even have 5th and 6th starting on an elementary schedule. And then, an hour earlier, 7th, 8th. So
there are big issues, and also with the busing.
Yes.
So the separate schedules.
We would, right, so we have 2 tiers of busing right now. Just running some of the basic modeling, it wouldn't be that drastic of a change. We may be talking 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm looking at what you passed out here, the facility master plan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I just don't have it in front of me.
Just silly question, but I look at your blue plan, which, and I notice that you have district identified needs at the bottom. Now, I'm assuming on top, because you're building new facilities, you don't have to do some of this stuff. But the
Correct.
district identified needs are not checked off the blue plan. Is everything covered?
No, because the blue plan, we are creating a 5, 6, 7, 8 building for a lot more money. So we had to move away from some of those district identified needs in the blue plan. So because we have a debt, when I told you we had of course we have a budget, and the debt ceiling, I'm probably pointing it the wrong way.
The state sets a debt ceiling of a certain amount of money, and we do not have debt other than we have I'm sorry. The state sets a debt limit, so our debt limit is 81.5 million. So whatever they did had to be within that amount. And we don't have debt. We've paid off the high school. We've paid off everything else that we've had.
So what that would imply, though, that those last identified needs, you may have to come back and do.
We would have to come back and do in some way. Yep, through our operational budget, and we also have a permanent improvement budget that I said that takes care of our more short-term needs that I talked about in the beginning. So we still have a permanent improvement fund levy that is every 5 years that the citizens vote on, but that keeps those are the immediate needs, the short-term needs. This is the facility plan that we're talking about here is way longer term. So some of that PIF money that is that 5-year cycle would be we would have to address them in some other way. We also at this time have $500,000 in the operational fund budgeted for our bricks and mortar and that maintenance, and on top of the PI. Mr. Tobin? Oh, sorry, go on.
Over here,
Sorry,
Doreen.
Evan's next. I should.
So I understand that the state sets the debt ceiling, and that's roughly the 81.5 million. So the budget amounts, they range from what, roughly 70 million up to that debt ceiling?
Yes.
So how does that compare with other districts, comparable sizes, comparable needs in terms of their facilities?
As far as the debt ceiling is concerned, or just
in terms of just that range, the budget from 70 to 80 million?
It is very comparable. So Revere is a comparable district. They're much smaller than we are. They're about 1,500 students smaller. They are asking their citizens for a bond issue this November, so we're keeping an eye on that. It's about the same. I think they're a little bit less because they have less kids. I think their ask is around 60 million. Streetsboro just had a bond issue pass, and they are actually opening a new high school. There's several Northeast Ohio schools. Strongsville just built a new middle school very similar to ours. Their debt ceiling was a little bit higher because they have a more diversified tax base with South Park Mall, and they have more industry. So their tax base is a little bit different than ours. So their debt ceiling is going to be different. Right, Catherine? Yay! Yeah.
I had a couple questions. One,
Yeah.
regarding, I'm sure you have it, what does the school population look like when you forecast it on top of what you're doing here?
We are pretty much evening out, but we're gaining about 45 to 50 students pre-K through grade 12 right now, a year. So our height is, I believe, 4,700, 4,800. Right now we're at about 4,600. So we'll increase, and then it levels out over the next 5, 10, and 12 years.
Okay. Next question, you have property over on Oviatt, where the old Oviatt school was.
Correct.
What are your plans for that property?
So the Board of Education, really in partnership with Phil, is looking at, and Catherine and Derek, looking at different partnership opportunities, having conversations with the city. Since it's, we're in the planning stages right now, it's not, I'm not really at liberty to speak about details, but we are constantly looking how we can minimize our expenses, but maximize our partnerships with the neighborhood and the city.
Yes, question. I mean, if you look at today's, where you're at in terms of building capacity being status quo at, 100% right now, do you have an idea in terms of which of these plans or how these plans affect current capacity? Do you increase capacity? Do you take capacity out of the system? Does it stay about the same? And I'm talking about the ability to handle students efficiently and certainly productively.
So if I hope I answer this correctly, I mean, what you're asking. In regards to capacity, we are maintaining the capacity, because if in the 5, 6, 7, 8 building, we're gonna selectively deconstruct part of Evamere, take some of the old operational costs off. Our square footage is about, our total square footage will actually go reduce, because we're using, when we're building new, we're making a lot more efficient use of our space, because we're not adding on and adding on. Within this, though, as we were working with the architects and the modeling with OHM, we considered really some flexible plus 10 to 15% of enrollment. So we can grow without having to add, hopefully, mobile units and everything, but we don't, the creek might rise.
So all three of these plans are about equal to what we have today for?
They're a little reduced, actually, because except the silver plan, the first plan, we're just renovating. There's not one single addition or deconstruction model, but the other two we're within probably 10% of what we are right now.
Here, let me get this to Dick.
How much longer? Well, it's just
This might be jumping ahead too far, but do you have any idea of the range of this group and how it might affect your tax rate?
So that whole, bond issue and bid process and bidding out the bonds and really putting that funding. So looking at, you have 20-year options, 25-year option, 30-year options to pay. It's like your mortgage, but a really huge mortgage. I do mean it's big, and I know that, and I don't want to make light of that, because it's huge. But hopefully, looking at a 30-year, we're anywhere for, in the millage range of 4.9 to about 5.5.
It's around 4.9, 4.8, 4.9, and it's less than what the high school was.
Yeah, it's less than the high school. Catherine, I'm trying to pad it a little bit for 5, so it's not such sticker shock now. It's around 4.9, but below 5 for a 30-year mortgage, for a 30-year bond. It could be higher for shorter. Yep. So the impact group, you will be receiving a survey via email from Catherine. We'll send it to Catherine. Impact group will send it to Catherine. So if you have further questions, further insight, because that's really what this is about, gathering the information so then it can be presented to our Board of Education so they can make the best informed decision about which one of these 3 plans we will move forward with. Okay. Do you need to talk? No? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Doreen. I'd also like to thank our greeters, Jay Yard, Gail Roaster, and audiovisual, Tom Page, Tom Tobin, Dan Rich, and Ron Bonhart, and Logan Ritter for doing the AV equipment. The last thing we have to do is the Rotobuck, and I'm going to have Doreen pull it. Today, the Rotobuck is $12, but the jackpot is $557. Read it out up here. Okay. Last 4, I think.
The last 4 are 2744. 2744. Oh, yay! What are you going to do with your $12?
With the 500, you mean?
It's the 500
Oh,
you
it's
want.
not the 500.
No,
Oh, right
no,
now.
no.
Oh, okay.
This is the important part.
No? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And parting thoughts, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Sir Winston Churchill. Have a good week.